Welcome to the Note Investor Podcast. We'll guide you through the ups and downs of note investing and teach you all about the nitty-gritty details of the business that other people won't talk about. Your host, Dan Deppen, is a former aerospace engineer and product manager who transitioned away from cubicle life to full-time note investing in 2018. Our website is www.fusionnotes.com, where you can subscribe to this podcast, comment, and find links to other information on note investing.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Note Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Deppen, and this time I'm going to be talking about standard operating procedures for your notes business. This is a topic an area I've really been working on hard over the last couple of months, and I've been planning on sharing this for a while, so I'm happy to kind of show you what I've got. Not quite totally done yet, but definitely starting to get there. So talk about, first of all, like what standard operating procedures are and why they might be important to your business. So if we look at the dictionary definition of what an SOP is, it means an established or prescribed method to be followed routinely for the performance of designated operations or in designated situations. And that's kind of a lot of gobbledygook, but what it means to me is it's just a standard way of doing things that you're going to be doing on a repeat basis. So if you have something in your business, no matter what it is, and you're doing it again and again, then it kind of behooves you to try to standardize that operation so you can do it again. And this is important for a whole lot of reasons. One, it's just going to make your business more efficient. So if you're doing something again and again, why not standardize it and put it on repeat? I mean, if you look at where you want to be creative in your business, it's really not on things you're doing over and over and over again, right? You want to be creative in aspects of expanding your business or doing new things, not this sort of back office stuff that you want to have on autopilot. So it's also important it allows you to bring on help. So, if you grow your business beyond a few notes, at some point, you're probably going to need an assistant to help out. And so if you have these standard operating procedures, that's going to make life a whole lot easier. And as we get into this, I'll talk about some of my lessons learned in that area and some of the mistakes that I've made before. And also, if you are bringing on employees, you're going to lose them from time to time for whatever reason. Either, things weren't working out or, they move on to something else. And if you have things written down, then it's going to make it a whole lot easier to backfill for folks when they move on to something else, that it's not going to be such an extreme crisis situation. And even if you aren't bringing on an assistant and you're doing everything yourself, standard operating procedures still help quite a bit. I know for me personally, I have certain things that I do on a quarterly basis. And a lot of times when I go to do them, like whether this be putting together quarterly reports for investors or checking on taxes, a lot of times, even though it may be something I've done a couple times, if I'm only doing it every few months, then when I start to dive into the task, my first thought is, wow, what the heck? How the heck did I do this last time? And I end up wasting time kind of relearning what I already did. So if you have kind of a script you can follow, it can save you a lot of time, even if you're the one doing it, or if you're as, kind of absent-minded as I can be. And what this whole thing is leading up to is making your notes business more scalable, right? And, if you want to move beyond, hey, I'm buying one or two notes, just for fun to see how things go. And maybe you want to scale to not just having an assistant, but having multiple employees throughout your business. You're really going to need to have things systematized and written down. And then the other main thing, and the thing that kind of drove me to this at first, was keeps you from having things fall through the cracks. I've said this before, but I think one of the biggest challenges in notes is there's so many little odds and ends and things going on with your different notes. And, you can't always depend on your vendors to be on top of everything and to catch everything. And so it's so easy for things to fall through the cracks. But if you have a really good set of standard operating procedures and you're executing on those on some regular cadence, that's going to find a lot of these problems and prevent them from getting bigger. So what parts of a notes business would you want to create standard operating procedures for and systematize? So I kind of put these into different buckets. And the big one is really the kind of portfolio maintenance, back office kind of tasks. So this is things like checking the status of delinquent taxes, checking the insurance status, following up on notes that are in the legal process, also following up on forbearance status and those investor quarterly reports. So to give you some examples, I'll admit I've done this. I had one a while back where a borrower completed a trial payment plan and forbearance agreement, at which point I needed to modify the loan. And I didn't notice that they had completed the forbearance agreement, and I forgot to mod the loan until like 2 months later. It wasn't a big deal, didn't cost the borrower anything. I got it all squared away, but I've got some systems in place now that'll prevent that type of thing from happening. And then the other big one is the delinquent tax status, where I've got a process in place now for that, where what I do on a quarterly basis is I order just some tax reports from ProTitle, and then I go through the whole portfolio at once every quarter. I've received a few letters before about, notifications of tax sale. And, if you're new to this, nothing drives more panic than getting a notice from a county that property is being lost at tax sale. Now, in reality, even if it's already gone to the sale, you have time to redeem and you can take care of those things. It's not that big a deal. But I've got things now on a regular cadence from checking those things, so they're never going to get to that point. And then there are a lot of other tasks that happen, whether they're marketing or other things that happen on an ad hoc basis. So for me, it's putting together my newsletters that come out every week or two, and this podcast. But then I've got other areas like asset manager outreach, which I have divided into separate buckets. So I've got kind of my go-to set of asset managers that I've bought from before, where I reach out to them on one cadence and in one method, typically just over the phone. And then I've got other asset managers that I've interacted with that are more of like the warm asset manager list that I'm typically reaching out to via email. And then I've got cold asset manager lists, which are leads or people I know are asset managers, but I haven't interacted with them before. And I do that in another way. And then maybe that's another good topic for future podcasts, is kind of the difference between warm or hot email and then cold email outreach, which you want to go about in a very different way. And then obviously processes for due diligence that I have in place, which I've obviously turned into an online course, but then I have other systems for pricing. And then the big one too is that I'll get into as we go along is onboarding a note. So I'll talk about how you can use Pipedrive to create some automations to create activities when you onboard a note. And then the other one that's bit me before is closing out deals, right? I mean, when you either sell a property as an REO or sell a performing note, I'm usually always excited. You get wired money, and then I tend to forget about it. But I went through recently and I had one of my insurance providers send me a list of all of my active policies, and I actually had a couple on there that were REOs I had sold months previous, where the insurance policies were still active. So now I've got some processes in place on the back end to make sure that I get FPI turned off and get all the loose ends tied up. Okay. And, I want to hear and talk about it. Like a lot of the systems I use now are based on, um, things I didn't do so well the first time around. So, I had an assistant for most of last year, which worked out, very well for the most part, but there were some mistakes that I made in how I went about this. When I brought her on initially, it was at a point where my business had been scaling up and I started to get really overwhelmed. Um, at that point, I didn't have all the systems together that I needed. And the big problem at the time was I didn't know what systems I needed. I didn't know even, necessarily all the steps that I should be doing on a regular basis. It's really hard to systematize something if you're not really sure what you should be doing. And I was having major problems at the time with a number of vendors who were letting things fall through the cracks all over the place, particularly one loan servicer that was in the middle of a headquarters move. They've since gotten that squared away, but at the time it was rough. So when I went out to hire an assistant, my main goal was to find somebody that was very detail oriented and could find the problems and just follow up on people relentlessly. And I went out and I found that right person. And we were managing most of these activities in Pipedrive, and so that went pretty well. But there were a few problems. So the main thing was the way I had separate activities for everything in Pipedrive. It was just really impossible to keep up with. And while she was very good at following up with things, we would get all these activities in Pipedrive that were like overdue. And so I would always look at the sea of red, which kind of stressed me out. And the other thing I didn't do real well was put bumpers on the communicate and set expectations for the communication cadence. I'm a lot better nowadays about dividing my day up into blocks and doing certain things at certain times. Whereas the communication cadence with my assistants was kind of like 24/7. I would get emails from her like late at night and early in the morning and, on the weekends. And it was always like this cortisol hit when I would get those because I would feel the need to respond. The other issue was I made such a big deal out of following up with vendors and making sure we got answers to different things that, um, she ended up kind of following up too much. And a lot of times, there would be 5 emails sent where one would suffice. And the tone wasn't always the best. And I began to become worried about, the relationship with some of the vendors. Um, so, but this whole process kind of served its purpose at the time, which was, you know, I was extremely overwhelmed and I needed that to stop, and we kind of were able to get through that. But, now that I'm deeper into the business is larger, I was able to kind of step back and really systematize this stuff a lot better. So instead of such a wild scramble to stop things from falling through the cracks, almost like was it the little Dutch boy plugging the holes in the dike? Um, I'm in a much better place now. So the other problem with this previous system too was the way I have Pipedrive set up, as I've got all the notes set up as a deal in Pipedrive and then different activities for everything that needs to happen. So for each note, I would have activities for checking the delinquent tax status on a regular basis, checking the insurance status, checking to see if a payment came in, and a lot of others. And the problem was, especially when you start getting 50, 60 notes, you end up with just hundreds of activities in Pipedrive, and they're really hard to keep up with, and they're being checked on kind of an ad hoc basis. So, you're checking taxes on one, and then you're checking to see if a payment came through, and then you're checking other things, and it's sort of inefficient because there's all of this switching that goes on. What I've moved to now, is a system that has more batching. So a lot of these routine tasks, I've got them divided up based on their cadence. So I have certain things that happen on a quarterly basis, like checking taxes, checking insurance, things that happen on a monthly basis, like checking to see if payments came in. And then there's other things that happen on a weekly basis, like just sweeping through the portfolio to check legal status on different things. And then there are all these other processes that get spawned. So what I've got now is in Google Docs, I'll have, like, for example, like for checking taxes, a spreadsheet that has a list of all the notes and then the tax status, and then the same for checking payments. So what I'm really doing is moving to more batching. So by batching and say checking all of the taxes at once or checking all of the payments at once, for one, it's more efficient because you're doing less switching from task to task to task. And by just having one activity in Pipedrive that says, hey, check all the payments instead of having 60, it's just a lot more efficient. It cuts out a lot of clutter and a lot of the administration stuff. So even though I've been working this on my own for the last couple months, it's actually been easier to manage. So I think batching is really, really key. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the tools actually used to put together these processes. So one of the big ones I use is called Confluence, which is from a company called Atlassian. If you've worked in the software world, Atlassian is mainly known for a software called Jira, which is used for tracking software requirements, but they make other software as well. And Confluence is basically just a tool for creating an online wiki. It's free, it's pretty easy to use. And what I like about it is I can create these little wiki articles for different tasks. So whether that be how to do warm asset manager outreach or uploading a podcast episode, I can create this wiki document, and then it's also really easy to link to, say maybe there's a spreadsheet that needs to be referenced in Google Docs, like the one that check payments. And then the other thing I'll do a lot is create little short videos. Sometimes I'll just make little 1-2 minute walk through how 2 videos, and I can link to those as well. It's just a really smooth process. And so over the last couple months, I've just been creating boatloads of these how-to articles for people to use, and other pages as well. And I've got pages in Confluence that kind of describe the business. And what I like about it is I can have a little paragraph up front. The way I create these standards, so I'll have a standard operating procedure for doing something. And then I'll have a paragraph that kind of says, here's why this is important. Here's why it's important that we check payments every month. This is what this feeds. This is why we do it. And then I actually get into the process. Oh, sorry about the background noise. My printer's here, and we're sharing the family printer. So let me open up one of these. And if you're watching this on video, it'll make, more sense. But for example, what's a good one? Finding a property manager, some of these other, starting cold email outreach. You can also do things where you, you can also do things where you create screen captures to where people can walk through everything. And I'll get into some of the other tools I use to do the screen captures and the videos. All right. So that's that one. So one of the next ones is Trello. If you haven't used Trello, it's really cool. So this is a Kanban board. And so the way the Kanban system works is you have these different tasks and then different buckets for each one. And you kind of create a workflow where you go left to right. So for my standard processes, I've got Trello templates set up. And then in working with a system, what I can do is I can basically look at my master cadence of what has to happen quarterly, what has to happen monthly, what has to happen weekly. And then for each week, I can set up the tasks that need to happen. And I can load those up in Trello. Pull this board up to the people who are watching on video. I can pull this up on Trello. And then as they get them in progress, they can move it to the next box. When it's ready for me to review, it can move to the next box. Then I can add notes. And so it really gives you a really nice view of everything that's happening and everything that's currently in the queue. The system that I use for this is based on a system that a friend of mine set up. and created some nice videos for. He's got a business. He's got a CrossFit training business, and so what he does is provide online CrossFit training, which is actually, with everything going on in the world, is probably a pretty good business to have versus a physical gym. But he's actually got like 7 or 8 employees that he works with, and Trello is a really good way of managing, um, you know, the status of everything that's in progress. So it's really easy for him to keep track of everything, and it's really easy for his employees to let him know when something is ready for review. Okay, so now the next one is so some of the tools for video. So I'm using some of the tools for video. So I use Movavi to record a lot. In fact, I'm using Movavi for this right at the moment. Movavi, I like it. It's very simple. You just drag the portion of the screen you want to record, and then you hit record, and it saves it. It's pretty simple, and it's also pretty cheap. I looked it up, $39.95. And then a lot of times I'll just upload the videos to YouTube. So when I'm creating a standard operating procedure video, I can still put that on YouTube, but you just want to set it as unlisted or private. And that way, if the general public goes to my YouTube page, they don't see all of these standard operating procedure videos that I have, because that's not what they're looking for when they go there. But I can create it unlisted or private, and then link to that within Confluence, and then I can give people access to Confluence, so I can kind of control the access to those videos. You can also use Zoom to record. It's just free and it's cheap and easy. I like Movavi because it's a little bit easier to use. You don't actually have to create a meeting and then leave the meeting and save it. It also comes with some fairly simple editing tools. I usually don't do a whole lot of editing in my videos, but if you want to do just like a little bit, like usually snip the beginning and the end, Movavi makes it very easy to do that. The one that I actually like more than Movavi that I used to use about 10 years ago when I was making poker training videos is Camtasia. Camtasia is very similar to Movavi. I think it's a little slicker. It's a little less bare bones than what Movavi is, but it's $249 instead of $39.95. And then they also have this yearly maintenance fee of like $50. And so it's, I think it's worth it. Probably should use Camtasia, but Movavi does the job and it's cheaper, so I spend the extra money. But if you're willing to splurge a little bit on video, I think Camtasia is a really, really cool tool that's worth checking out. Other tool, which is also made by TechSmith. So Camtasia is made by a company called TechSmith, and they make another tool that I use called Snagit, which is for screen captures. And this one is $49.95. I've used Snagit for over 12 years, probably. And I like it because it's really dirt simple to take screen captures. You can set up your own hotkeys to do screen captures. And then it comes with some of these, kind of simplified tools. If you want to draw boxes around different things, when I'm creating standard operating procedures, I can take a screen capture of something I'm doing, and then create some red boxes to highlight things. I can add notes and draw arrows, and it makes it really, really easy. I mean, it really takes almost no time at all to do these things. So that's a tool that I highly recommend. And I'm not sure, but they might sell some bundles. So if you did want to spend the extra money to get Camtasia, I think they might have some bundles where you can get Snagit and Camtasia together and potentially save a little bit of money. All right, so now we get into Pipedrive. And Pipedrive is the CRM that I use. I like it because it's fairly adjustable. I've modified my Pipedrive setup a lot over the years. When I first set up Pipedrive a couple years ago, I used the Adam Adams videos that you can find out there on YouTube. And I set it up. I actually took some screen captures and set it up the way that he had it. But then over time, I've changed a million things as I figured out how I want to run my business and how I want to do it. Um, but one of the things I like in Pipedrive that they came out with, I think it was maybe a year and a half ago. They didn't have this for the longest time, but they've got what they call automation. So what you can do in Pipedrive is when you have a deal, which I set up a note as a deal, you can set up some automation. So if you move it from one stage to another, then some things automatically happen. So what I do is if I'm going to, after I close on a note and I move the note from being in due diligence to being onboarded, I can have it create a bunch of activities automatically. So some of those activities would be things like verifying that force placed insurance is set up, sending out a hello letter to the borrower, which I will often send out my own hello letters to the borrowers. I don't always do this, but if it's a non-performing note that I'm going to work on getting performing, kind of the first stage in my loss mitigation process, is I'll send out my own hello letter. This is actually in addition to the hello and goodbye letters that the servicers send out to meet RESPA requirements. And my hello letters is, nicely worded, but says something along the lines of, hey, your loan is this far behind. Here are all of the details. Please reach out and give me a call so we can talk to you about getting things worked out so you can save your home. Okay. But a lot of these a lot of these activities that happen post closing on a note don't happen right away, right? So something like sending out the hello letter to the borrower, I actually don't want to send that out until the loan transfer has occurred and the loan servicer hello and goodbye letters have come out. So I might be sending that out a couple weeks later. What I like about the automation in Pipedrive is I can not only create these activities automatically, but I can delay them. So some activities might be created immediately. Some might happen a couple days later, some a week later. I can set activities to happen a month later. It doesn't matter. So this makes it a lot easier because now I don't have to manually go into Pipedrive and set all these things up. I get them created automatically and I get them created at the time increment that I need. So that's a big time saver. Makes life a lot easier. Now, the other thing I do within Pipedrive, all right, is a lot of times there are these different ad hoc tasks. So they may not necessarily be a task that was created automatically when I close the node, or it may not be a task that I do in a batch. Maybe I got a letter from the city and I need to respond to it. So as I create ad hoc activities and tracking the other ones, what I really like about this is I'm able to create notes within Pipedrive. So if you're watching this on video, you can see I just created kind of an example one. Like let's say I needed the servicer to turn on force placed insurance. And maybe on April 14th, I asked the servicer to turn it on. And then what I can do is set the due date for the activity in Pipedrive some number of days later. And then that flags me to check to make sure that they didn't. And then if they didn't, I can send them an email to ping them and say, hey, what's going on with this? And then I can add in the notes like, hey, okay, on 4/14, I asked them to turn on force placed insurance. And then on, let's say, 4/20, I noticed that it wasn't shown as activated yet in the portal. And then I sent them a note to go and get that turned on. And so it just creates a really orderly way to keep track of these things. And this is one of the big things I do to keep stuff from falling through the cracks. The next thing I'm going to talk about is doing mail merges. So a lot of times I'm creating documents on a regular basis, whether these are hello letters that go out to the borrower. Sometimes they are JV agreements with partners, or from hypothecating loans, can be loan and note paperwork. And a lot of times these are always following the same template, but the data changes. And you may or may not be familiar with doing mail merges within the Microsoft world, but there's some other tools you can use within Google Docs and other things as well. And I found one called Merge Factory, which is an add-on for Google Docs. I forget what it cost. I think it was $20 or $30, it's pretty cheap. But what you can do, for example, is let's say in a borrower hello letter, right? I'll have the name of the borrower. And this is a templated letter, so I'll have the name of the borrower, maybe the name of the servicer, the date that the letter is going out, and then the different loan parameters, the property address, the P&I, the current balance, how far it is behind, right? And what I can do is I can put that data that changes for every letter in a spreadsheet. So in this case, a Google spreadsheet, I guess it's called Google Sheets. And then I can use this add-on and basically click a button. And then I have a template of a Word doc that maps to all of those columns in the spreadsheet. And then basically I click the button and it'll spit out the letter. And so what I used to do before was I would do a save as from a previous letter and then go through and update all these little areas. And then I would inevitably make a copy paste error where I would forget to update a box. And then you end up feeling silly afterwards. So using some kind of a mail merge tool or like Merge Factory for Google Docs is really nice because if your template is correct, then you eliminate those copy paste errors, and you also save yourself a ton of time because it literally takes me a few seconds to go in. I just need to make sure my information is correct in the spreadsheet, and then it's literally click a button and the Word document or Google Docs gets spit out. Makes life so much easier, saves you a lot of time. And then I've got standard operating procedures for how to create these. So it gets even better from my perspective. So if I need to send a borrower letter out, I can ask the assistant to do that. They can follow the standard operating procedure and then use these tools so that it saves a lot of their time. So I can run through kind of an example. So one would be, checking for missed payments, which is a big one that I do every month. It's one of my key ones. I started doing this back in, I guess, February. But the first week of every month, I'll review every note to see if a payment came in. And then I'll also note on my spreadsheet whether it was a regular payment, whether they missed, whether they made a regular payment, or whether they made 2 payments. And then if there are follow-up activities needed, I'll put those in the Pipedrive. So I don't do all the follow-up activities while I'm doing. When I'm doing the activity for checking the missed payments, I just check for the missed payments. But let's say somebody did miss and I need to send a follow-up letter to a borrower. So I have all kinds of templates for sending other letters to borrowers. So there's the initial hello letter. There's templates that say, hey, you missed the payment, what's going on, to, hey, your taxes are delinquent, what do you want to do with this? And then let's say they did miss a payment and I need to send a letter, then I'll go into Pipedrive, create an activity for that, and then I'll complete that later when I'm going through my Pipedrive activities. But then typically the way this would flow is, hopefully most of the payments came in okay. The ones that didn't, I'll set activities in Pipedrive to respond, whether that's sending a letter, whether that's following up with the loan servicer. And then when actually following up and creating those letters, then I can use Merge Factory and my existing templates for those. And so with this, I've got a really orderly process for checking, and I can intervene quickly when a payment gets missed. I think that's really key in loss mitigation, is reaching out to the borrower when something goes off rather than letting them get way off track. Responding sooner is generally going to be better than responding later. The other thing I noticed too when I implemented this a few months ago was when I sent out some letters that said, hey, I noticed you missed the payment, please reach out to the loan servicer if you need help, let us know what's going on. A lot of those borrowers make double payments the following month to get caught up. So this is really one of my key processes that I lean on heavily and that I get a lot of value out of. So to kind of wrap this up, I was going to talk a little bit about where a lot of the inspiration for this came from and a lot of the ideas. So there's another podcast called The Tropical MBA that's been out since maybe 2008. I think I've listened to it since back then. But the folks who do that are, entrepreneurs not involved in real estate, but they're more general entrepreneurs. They've had a number of different businesses. And, the podcast kind of started around building location independent businesses, of which note investing is definitely one of those. I mean, I don't live in the same state where any of my notes are. But they've also got this other community they call the Dynamite Circle that I was able to join last year. It's a really great community. You have to get screened to get in. It's not expensive. It's very cheap. It's like a couple $100 to get in. But you do have to have a real existing business and actually be doing stuff, which is nice. And I like this a lot better than some of the other quote unquote masterminds I've seen that charge thousands of dollars, and a lot of the people in there aren't really active operators. But they've got a private forum and some other things, and the folks in this community are really, really interesting. All kinds of different businesses, a lot of digital marketing agencies, Amazon-based businesses, copywriting businesses, different things. But a lot of these folks have like 20, 30 employees working for them, scattered around the world, and they share a lot of their standard operating procedures. A lot of them use Google Docs versus Confluence, like I use, but I was able to leverage a lot of the things that people have already used and set up. And like the Trello system came from something that my friend who has the CrossFit business shared on there. It's just been a really big help. So, you may or may not be able to join that community, but their podcast is pretty good. And they talk about, a lot of different things related to entrepreneurship that I know I've gotten a lot of value out of over the years. But it's really good to hang out with folks who are really building really interesting businesses that are a lot bigger and a lot more developed than mine. So it's a really good influence. I've also got some, I don't recall if I've talked about this before on the podcast, but some other like kind of sub mastermind groups. There's a group of a handful of other real estate investors that I talk to on about a monthly basis. And, with businesses that are different than mine, but similar and a lot of the same challenges. So like one guy does mineral rights and vacant land out of Texas. And there's another guy who's German, but he lives in Brazil, and he buys apartments at foreclosure auctions in Brazil, Sao Paulo, which is really not for the faint of heart. So anyways, try to surround myself by a lot of good influences and get a lot of good ideas for systematizing businesses. The thing that's really interesting about this community is even though they're very pride themselves on being location independent, and a lot of these folks, will spend half the year in Thailand and half the year in Europe, and they're kind of these like freewheeling hippies. You would think that they wouldn't be big on process, but they are actually fanatical about systematizing their business and developing good processes, because that's what really enables them to have that location independence and really be able to scale up. So I've been trying to incorporate more and more of that into my business, and that's where a lot of the motivation for this comes from. So hopefully that helps you give some ideas for how you can create some standard operating procedures for your business. If you got any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can always reach me at dan@fusionnotes.com. And if you were listening to this and wanted to see more of the visuals, please check out the YouTube channel. It's just youtube.com/fusionnotes, and would really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Fusion Notes YouTube channel as well. I'm trying to do more on YouTube, and I want to be able to add some links inside the YouTube videos so that I can link to other videos of mine within there, but you have to have a certain number of subscribers before they let you do that, and I'm not quite there yet. So if you could subscribe, that would help a lot. So until then, I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.